Hi everyone, I'm Stan from Eagle Vision. I'm here with Troy Flower. Troy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stan. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So we thought to take a little bit of a different tack this time around, rather than talking about property or developments, to talk about actually men's health. It's a really, really relevant topic, and Troy, he's got a background from coming from a corporate background with a whole range of different industries, through to also being, look, for most people's understanding, a fairly elite level athlete with a background in many different sports and has competed in many different races, and most recently has been look, finishing a bunch of times on the podium in mountain bike racing. So a really wide range of experience, but for the last 4 years or so, Troy's been running Wellteam, which is a men's health group and business specialising in men's health. So I thought, who better to talk to about this sort of stuff than Troy? So, Troy, I think in the first episode, we'd like to talk about mind.
Yeah.
Out of all the different things, what do corporate high performers need to think about when it comes to mind?
Yeah, I think high performance is an interesting subject, and for us to be able to focus at a high level with a high level of intensity requires us to have great clarity. It's one of the things we often don't think about. Like if you take a 200,000 year lens on evolution and you think about how our roles and how things have changed between the distribution of effort between body and mind, what's happened in recent years is it's nearly all mind. A lot of us are focused on great amounts of data coming in. We're having to process that data. We're having to try and filter out what we need to know from what we don't need to know. We need to filter entertainment from fact. And then we need to make decisions. And people listening to this, if you're in the property industry, there's so much information, there's so much content. How do you make $1 million decisions?
Yeah. Super important things, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does one get to clarity?
Yeah, and I think this is a challenge. There is so much data, and we often think about, if you think about two circles, one inside the other, and the one on the inside is your circle of influence. This is stuff that you can actually make a decision on, or you can affect. And the one outside of that is your circle of concern.
Right.
And so these days we're inundated in our circle of concern, and it's huge. We can be worried about world events, we can be worried about global warming, we can be worried about politics so much. But what can we actually affect? Because the more time we spend in our circle of concern means that we actually spend less time in our circle of influence. And so we need to sort of dumb things down a bit in a way. So I don't watch the news. And people say that's crazy, you're being naive if you're not watching the news. Well, most of what I see in the news is actually just entertainment.
Right.
It's not really anything I can affect, and if I can't affect it, then let's focus on the things that I can affect.
Yeah.
So
and it gets your energy up and down and all kinds of things.
That's right. And you can spend too much time on stuff outside of what you can make any difference in.
Yeah.
And so we have to be really focused, and it's the mind that's got to be focused.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, with obviously getting to clarity, there are a lot of stimuli. We've got lots of different inputs coming in. How do we decide what's actually relevant and what's not relevant?
Yeah, well, I think if we want to get clarity around what's relevant and what's not, we have to really understand our purpose and why we're here and what we're doing. And I think we're going to cover this in a later section on purpose.
Sure.
But it is absolutely critical for us to spend time doing the thing that we're meant to be doing.
Okay, so we need to decide on that. Sometimes people go so intense though that they end up in burnout.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid getting over that threshold?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and I guess if you take it, you've just completed a significant physical and mental challenge in an Ironman race.
Yep.
Now these are really hard, challenging events, and if you're training for an elite event, which is going to tax your body, then you train the body.
Right.
And critical in that training are periods of effort where you expand your ability, and then recovery where you enable your body to recover. And if you don't spend enough time in recovery, then you will get unwell.
Right.
And in essence, it's exactly the same when we're a high performance thinker. We can't be in a constant state of stress because your brain is a series of chemical reaction and electrical impulses that pass backwards and forwards and up and down our body. It takes in stimuli, we have to process it, it's a system, and it's very taxing. And at the end of some days where you can do no exercise at all, you can be completely fatigued and fall asleep.
Right.
And it's because we need to recover. And too much of our time we think, actually, I don't need to recover because sleep when I'm dead. And if I hear that one more time, it's completely insane because don't sleep and you will die earlier is not a good strategy. So it's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to train for an Ironman. I'm going to train every single day, 12 hours a day. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to recover. You won't make it.
That's right.
And yet we go into a business context and we go, actually, I'll be fine. I don't need to sleep. I'm going to drink hard. I'm going to party hard, and I'm going to make $1 million, $100 million decisions.
Burn the candle at both ends.
It's crazy. You can't do it. And these days, we just have to go. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, if we were an athlete, we could party hard. And then recover the next day. But it's our minds that are doing all the heavy lifting. So we need to get on top of our sleep.
Yeah.
Too much of our time we have brain fog these days, which I'm sure that people listening to this will go, actually, there have been times where I struggle to make simple decisions. Yeah. I wear the same clothes every day because I don't have the brain power to actually decide what to wear.
Yeah, we've got only so many decisions that we can make per day, right?
That's right. Yeah. And if we don't recover, we'll do poorly at that decision making.
Yeah, right. Okay. So sleep, and it sounds so simple. Right? How does one actually focus their time and give themselves the permission to go to bed early? Or
Well, it is absolutely understanding that sleep is a critical part of high performance. And more important than sleep, I would say, to use the word recovery.
Right. Okay.
So recovery is what you need. So you need to recover your brain. And the reason why recovery is a better way to think about it than sleep is that sleep has different cycles. So you go to sleep. And I hear this all the time, I have no trouble sleeping because when I go to bed, I fall straight asleep. That's called exhaustion. So it's like I've just been running a marathon and I sit down at the end.
And I'm out.
Well, you can't keep running because you're exhausted and the brain's like that. But your brain goes through various different phases. So we have primarily we have awake. We have this transitory phase called light sleep. Then we have deep sleep. And then often we come up into a state called REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. Yep. And each of those phases, in particular the REM phase and the deep sleep phase, are really critical for mental processing. But deep sleep is the one that we need most for genuine recovery. So if you're sleeping 8 hours and you're waking up in the morning going, I'm just knackered, I'm really struggling to get through the day, but I slept for 8 hours, it's probably that you're not getting enough deep sleep. So that's where we need to focus. And you're not going to know if you've had enough deep sleep unless if you use a fitness tracker. They can be valuable to give you that insight. And so we need to be targeted. This is the recovery phase. If we want to wake up fresh with ability to make fast, good quality decisions in a high performance framework, then we need to recover. And key to that is going to be focusing on getting that deep sleep phase. And there's a lot of stuff we can do there.
Yeah, okay. So how does one then think about it? Right, we've got the recovery, we're going to get some sleep, but to get to sleep, often when my brain is wired and things are going a million miles an hour, how does one slow down to get to sleep? That's the biggest challenge I sometimes find, right?
Yeah. It's and so much is interlinked. So we can't think about sleep in isolation because we need to think there's several things happening when we sleep. So we've got a natural hormonal cycle that happens, something called your circadian rhythm happens, but then you've also got these outside influences called we're thinking about stuff. If you have an argument before you go to bed, or you suddenly discover that there's been a significant change in a project that you're working on before bed, your mind's going to be processing that.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to achieve this great state of sleep every night because of
amazing, right?
all these external influences. I know for me, so it's very difficult to have that consistency. But we need to build in triggers prior to sleep. So these are things that we know When that happens, my body starts to wind down. So there's a whole series of little stimuli or triggers. And it may be something as simple as I have a cup of chamomile tea or some type of caffeine-free tea half an hour or an hour before bed.
Yeah.
And that starts the process. It triggers the mind to go, you know what, we've got to wind down. In fact, one of the best things I believe that you can do is to do some journaling.
Right.
And simply to write down all of the things that are in your head at that point in time, and in particular to note down the things that you've got to do tomorrow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because otherwise, what happens, and you'll have caught yourself doing
Of
this, before you go on to an Ironman, you know, I'm sure that day before you flew out, you're going through the checklist.
That's right.
And if you didn't write it down, you'll be going throughout the night, you'll be going, got to pack the air canisters for the tyres, got to pack the air canisters for the tyres.
Well, in fact, my coach has said many, many times that typically before the Ironman, 2 nights before, the sleep is the most important bit. The night before, don't worry about it. If you don't sleep, don't stress. You're up at 3 a.m. the next morning. At night, even if I've tried going to bed at 7:30, I'm still in my mind going through all the different things. Hey, have I done this? Have I done that? So you're absolutely spot on. Yeah. Oh, it's a fun adventure.
Yeah. And so if we can get those things out of our head, then we don't play over this internal thought process, which is don't forget the air canisters, don't forget the spare tyre, don't forget and that'll play over in our heads. But if we put it down, and another thing that I do is in my calendar, I actually have recovery written into my diary. So it's that kind of time boxing thing. So I put recovery in from 8 p.m. at night through to 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And when I wake up at night, I do this very simple process. I say to myself, what am I doing? This is my recovery time. It's not my problem solving time. Because I know, and I'm sure people listening to this and watching this will know that when you wake up in the middle of the night and you try to solve a problem, you will invest an inordinate amount of time, maybe 2 or 3 hours. When you wake up in the morning, you'll either go, I can't remember what I decided, or you'll wake up in the morning and go, that was a dumb idea.
Yeah.
It happens nearly all the time. And so this is that.
So don't bother problem solving at 3 a.m.
It's useless, you know, and you know full well that if you just write that problem down on a piece of paper and you sit it next to the bed and go, that's tomorrow's problem to solve. For me to solve that well, I need to wind down the system. I need to get the full recovery so that my brains, my neurons, all of the chemicals in my head are going to function to solve that problem well.
Yeah.
That's high performance.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so on a flip side, there are some people that talk about meditation.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about meditation, high performance? Sometimes they don't go together too well.
Well, actually they do. So
okay.
If you look at high performance, and a lot of high performance athletes do go through a period of mental preparation.
Right.
It's critical in every aspect of high performance for the brain to be functioning well.
Right.
And all meditation really is a period of shutting out other stimuli and again enabling recovery. That whole preparation is what's important. Enhanced concentration is a different way to think about meditation. So if you don't like the word meditation because you can imagine these sort of Buddhist monks and you think that's not my thing, then think of enhanced concentration.
Right.
So at a point in time you are concentrating solely focused on something incredibly simple. And often you hear about meditation about focusing on the breath.
Yep.
Well, the thing with the breath is that it's actually a really fascinating cycle if you focus in on it. And again, we're practicing enhanced concentration, it's hyper focus on a particular state and excluding all other distractions. So that's meditation.
Yeah.
So you can be sitting outside, sitting on a park bench, looking up at the sky and listening for the birds around you. Now, that's enhanced concentration.
Yeah.
So we're trying to shut out all of the stuff that's filtering into our heads, that's trying to steal our time, energy and focus.
Right.
And instead we're going hyper-focused on something as a bit of a practice. It's kind of building a skill.
Definitely, like a muscle.
Yeah.
So, and we're touching on the nervous system, right? So you've got parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems. How do they kind of work together with all the things that we talked about?
Yeah, I love it. You know, and a lot of people don't think about this, but we have, I'm sure people will be aware, the fight and flight response,
Yep.
fight, flight, flee, freeze, and this is the immediate response. It's part of our autonomic nervous system.
Yep.
It's kept us alive. We can run, we can flee, all of those things in an acute survival mode.
Yep.
We're not thinking greatly about what's happening around us, but it's just a response.
Yeah.
And to balance that, because in that stage there's a bunch of chemicals going through our brain and then triggering through our body, which enable us in the event of an extreme event. So if we're being attacked or fighting, then
Yep.
we have to ensure that our system's ready to recover, repair if we get injured as quickly as possible, because our life's at stake. But our body doesn't have a natural way to filter my life's at stake from that email is really frustrating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get that
Yeah.
same response. And so if we're spending all of our time with our sympathetic nervous system triggered, so we hear the news, there's a war going on, I've checked that email, bing, there's another notification on my phone, that project's not going ahead, that application's been delayed.
Yeah.
All of these things are triggering a similar response, and we're getting fatigue in our nervous system in this sympathetic state.
Right.
And that's where things like meditation and sleep and breathing exercises and just time in nature can help, because that triggers the opposite of the sympathetic system, which is called parasympathetic.
Okay.
And the parasympathetic system is the rest and recovery phase.
Right. Okay.
So if we spend all of our time in that heightened state of alertness, which is great for problem solving, great for getting shit done,
Yep.
then we're actually going to be burnt out. There's no other way. So we need to balance it with the parasympathetic side of the equation.
And is there any kind of like almost time blocking and saying, right, this time is optimal for decision making? This bit, like you've talked about, obviously 3 to 5 a.m. being recovery, but during the day, you can't be going 100 miles an hour.
That's right, and everybody's different. And I think this is the reality. We all have different genetic makeup, we have different conditioning, we may have different health, we have different ages, and so all of these things play out differently.
Yeah.
So doing an IM, the Ironman at your age, you go, that's hard.
Right.
Doing it another 20 years on you, that's even harder. But doing it when you're 18, you go, well, maybe it's harder from a different reason.
Exactly.
Physically it's easier, psychologically it's harder when you're 18.
Yep.
At your age, you're in that peak age where you can actually find it harder physically but easier mentally.
That's
Or
right.
you've got some tools, and then later in life you find it much harder physically, and mentally you have other barriers that challenge you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it differs person to person, situation to situation, but you need to factor in recovery. I think that's just the simplest thing. During your day, can I factor in? Can I time box in some periods of recovery? And an easy sort of hack around that is to think, when I eat, I'm going to walk to where I eat, and I'm going to walk from where I eat. So
Brilliant.
the notion of move around food. So for breakfast, move around food. Have your breakfast, go for a walk, or go for a walk and then have your breakfast. Then of a lunchtime, go for a walk, get some lunch. If you use a local cafe, or if you eat at home, just go, I'm going to walk around the block, then I'm going to have my lunch. It's going to improve digestion, but it's also going to give you a period of just decharge. So recharging the body, calm down, take a few deep breaths, look around you, take some sort of, and people find getting into a meditation or meditating hard. So don't. Just do that enhanced concentration.
Yeah.
So go for a walk and think about, right, I'm just going to think about the birds today, or I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to think about the breeze.
Yeah.
I'm just going to try and feel that on my skin. Something that's so simple that you just try and block out other stimuli to focus on something really simple.
Yeah, that seems to be the key. Very good. Look, I think that's all that we sort of wanted to cover for the mind part of it. Next time around, we'll talk about the body, and there's a lot more to come. Thanks for watching.
Brilliant.